die dwumadie bia edemfa so bebre jihad kuyi na boya kohoma bokuyi hu bra sese yepe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asrafo mujahideen the soldiers of Allah no ma beautiful to die bia dwuma bokuyi hu bra na ma ye jaya desre ewo ye radio ni ye TV yiso se wo pese wo contribute ebo dwumadie ya mobile money contact a wo be send wo photo afa so 0246751175 se wo send bibia fa number yiso a hwese dina ba mam online ansana wa send insha Allah 0246751175 bo Allah besia na wo branya kwada mam online radio and TV still wo dawa fikesiem
mam radio wallahi al-jannatu fi daws is our limit inshallah. Amen.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You're live on Mam Online Radio and Mam Online TV. It's time for Mamphec and today we are discussing HIV/AIDS, and I have with me in the studios our brother and father, Mr. Amin. We'll go for a short commercial break as we come back to discuss the topic.
Mam Online Radio and TV.
I'm leaving.
Mam radio. Wallahi, al-jannatu fi daws is our limit inshallah. Amen.
Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, once again, welcome back to the Mamphec. Like we stated earlier, it's time for Mamphec, and today we are discussing HIV/AIDS, and I have with me in the studio our brother and father, Mr. Amin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So, like we always do, we chose this topic for this week due to certain reasons. And earlier this week on Monday, I think on Joy News, we had information revealing that, statistics from the Ghana AIDS Commission revealing that there was an increase in 18% of HIV/AIDS between the year 2016 and 2017. We've been discussing some issues concerning health, and today we saw the need to discuss such an increase in between the 2017 years. There's such an increase. So before we say anything else, we just like Mr. Amin to introduce himself a bit before the main topic.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وبعد. In the first place, I want to salute all your listeners with the greatest salutation. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Mohammed Amin, a health tutor with the Ministry of Health.
Okay, that's a short introduction from our panelist for today, Mr. Amin. He is a tutor with the Kokofu Nursing Training College under the Ministry of Health. So, from the information we had, statistics showed that there was an 18% increase between the year 2016 and 2017. Looking at these statistics, can we briefly talk about the age limits, like those that were really affected, like between the year groups? We have children, we have adolescents, we have the older age, like the adults, then the aged, those between 50, 60 years, the old age. But we just want to know, based on statistics, the year groups, those that were really affected.
All right. In the first place, I think I will not be too much concerned with statistics because of figures.
Yeah.
Sometimes people manipulate it to their own advantage. But I want us to really look at it from the point that HIV prevalence is on the rise. And based on the report that you said, I think social media, one of the disadvantages has been that people concoct so many information, put it out there, and sometimes I call it deception, deceive a lot of people. And I think with the information you're talking about, Ghana AIDS Commission came out clearly last week to debunk the fact that there hasn't been any increase in the prevalence rate to about 80%, because that was the reportage from Joy FM. And in fact, they acknowledge the fact that there has been an increase, which is a slight percentage increase, but not to that margin of 70% to 80%. I want to mention that HIV prevalence, in fact, since its discovery, there has been a rise in its prevalence. And over the last few decades, about 78 million people have been affected. And currently, we have about 36.7 million with HIV infection. So the implication is that about 35 million people have died as a result of HIV. But the worrying aspect is that about 40% do not know their status. That is out of the majority, out of the 36 million, which is more than the population of Ghanaians. We have about 40% not knowing their status, which is close to about 25 million thereabout. They don't know their status. And another worrying trend is that we have majority of these infections occurring in low to middle income countries. And if you look at the statistics, about 25.5 million people in sub-Saharan Africa. So it means that the worst affected population, HIV population, is in Africa. And this was predicted long ago because they realized that the health system in Africa is nothing to write home about. We were, at a disadvantaged position. And when you look at this 25.5% in sub-Saharan Africa, majority of them are in East and South Africa. That is about 24.4 million in East and South Africa. But when it comes to West Africa and Central Africa, we have about 6.1% out of this total population. So you could see that in 2016, the statistics shows that about 1.8 million people were infected. And in that same year, so it means that 1.8 million people were infected. We were recording approximately 5,000 people with new infections every single day. And you could see out of this figure, even though we had 1.8 million, we also had an amount of about 1 million people dying in 2016 alone. So generally, there has been a decline, globally. But when you look at the African region, we are still seeing an upward, adjustment of the figures. Of which Ghana is part. And talking about the demographics as to which population is much more affected and all that, I think globally, children and adults have had a decline globally. The global trend is that children and adults have had a decline. However, the statistics is different for Ghana. In Ghana, the adults are rather having an upward adjustment, whereas the children and the adolescents are having a decline. I think it is probably due to the fact that now more pregnant women are it has become mandatory to be tested during pregnancy, so that if you are tested positive, there are measures that we take to prevent your child from getting infected. So I think that's why over a decade and a half, we have a lot of people not having the infection. So that accounts for the decline in the children. But globally, the infection rate is decreasing with the adults and the children. However, with adolescents, that is between the ages of 10 and 24, we have seen a steady, upward adjustment in some of these figures. And this age group is much more vulnerable to so many things that could put them at risk of acquiring the infection. So basically, that's what I can say about the statistics for now.
Thank you very much. So, listening what you just said about the statistics, it's not like there hasn't been education and all those things. People do go out to educate the public and all those things, but you realize that it keeps increasing, especially within the adolescent year group. We had a situation where a colleague went to one community in the central region, and they realized that teenage pregnancy was becoming an issue. So they just went there to educate them concerning teenage pregnancy. And now teenage pregnancy, people don't really see the bad thing in it. After all, if I get pregnant, I'll give birth. But the other thing they don't look out for is the other health issues that they might suffer, like the STDs and all those things, of which HIV/AIDS can be included. They leave it out. So I don't know if they do go out to educate them, but they leave out the other aspects of the issues of concern. So what is really causing the increase in the prevalence?
Yes,
of
I
HIV?
think the approach to prevention the spread of HIV is a major concern and has become a major debate among not just medical practitioners, but with sociologists, people with economic background and all that, because we believe the causes are multifactorial.
Yeah.
It comes from so many causes.
Yeah.
We have social cultural dimensions, we have other dimensions to it. So you could see with the spread, when you look at our current family system or social system, we have a child who lives with parents. The parent doesn't have enough accommodation in a single room. So as the child is growing at the teenage level, still sleeping in the same room with the parents and all that, and not that child alone, perhaps he may be living with some other siblings. So you realize that possibly the child may be forced to find a place and sleep and be spending the night and all that. So you could see some of these things could lead the child to some unhealthy sexual behaviors. And when that happens, their chances of getting some of these conditions increase. You understand? And sometimes for economic reasons, we have, in Africa, we cry of poverty so much. Poverty, poverty, poverty. However, we don't take, you can use all the medical terminologies or the medical approach to curing HIV. If we don't look at the socio-cultural aspect, the economic aspect, we can never achieve our target. So if you have a, let's say, 18-year-old child, and this child doesn't have any identified sponsor when it comes to her education, when it comes to even sometimes sanitary pad to use during menstrual period, it's even an issue for the young teenager. When that happens, they are forced to rely on some other means. And some of these things, I mean, pushes them or gets them much more closer to acquiring the infection and all that. So you could see that in Ghana, there are several factors, social-cultural factors, that really pushes our young girls and boys closer to the infection. Take a look at our educational system. SHS, people dump them in the schools, in the boarding house, and you just can't imagine the kind of education or even the kind of training we even gave them prior to taking them to those schools. So they go there, and in fact, in Ghana, it's even a taboo for most parents to talk about sex with their children. So if the orientation is like this, we have children who go out there and out of adventure, they want to try new things, try the new world that they find themselves. By the time you realize, they have cut and pasted old behaviors or bad behaviors from colleagues. And some of these, we talk about exhibitionism and all that, they've pushed them to so many behaviors that put them at risk of acquiring the infection. So you could see that even though Ghana, we are not too much interested in research. In Ghana, we don't spend money on research. Other than that, the figures would have been there for all of us to see. But empirically, if you look at on the ground, we can see that majority of some of these SHS students are engaged in, they are sexually active. You understand? And we are not too sure about whether they engage in safe practices or unsafe practices. These are areas for concern, and in fact, sometimes you see now we don't have majority of our teenagers sitting at home. So I believe that even the public health educators should rather target these students, the schools, so that even if we don't make it part of our curriculum, what we can do is to have frequent visits to these schools, and even have a well-tailored program for them, not to leave these young girls to be fighting for their own. Now with the invention of social media, Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp and the rest, they are learning so many bad behaviors, and it put them at risk. So that accounts for the increase in the teenage pregnancies, the increase in these infections, including HIV and all that. So there are several dimensions to the issue.
Multifactorial. I will agree with you, because with this community we're even talking about, young girls as young as 10 years, they rather go to the guys to sleep with them because of petty items they need, because they don't get those items from their family. And like you said, from school, sometimes going out there right from junior high school, they are not educated on all these issues, and that at JHS, that's when they are supposed to know about all these pertinent issues, so that when they get there, at least they have first-hand information. Because when they go there, they are associated with mothers, like school mothers and all those things, and if the school mother is someone who is indulged in, the likelihood of that student also indulging in such acts is very high, and it's very prevalent in these senior high schools. So it's not just about the engaging in sex or teenage education. We should look more into societal issues, especially right from our homes. Our parents should also be willing to talk to some of our kids, so that they will be well versed with. So
yes, that's why I think just like you rightly said, it's important we take what I call a robust strategy to approaching this menace, in the sense that you see, quite recently there has been report that we have lesbian homosexuality being on the rise in our various schools, not even in the schools, the communities. And the most vulnerable groups, or the common people you find in this whole business, are our young girls and boys. Now we know HIV is closely associated with what? This homosexuality. If you have someone who is straight and someone who is not, someone who is straight has an increased chance of getting it. Now I say the entire community, excuse me to say, is sick, because we don't have any proper plan. Now, who is to do education alone is not enough. Education alone is not enough. However, even with education, how far are we going? So how often do you hear on the minbar an imam talking about HIV, AIDS, and the need, or talking about the various dimensions as to how best we can curb it? It's not common on our minbar. When you take our Christian counterparts, the same. Their theme for their devotions and all that is far away from some of these things. So it is important that as a community we realize that the fight against HIV infection is not just about talking, but we need to take robust actions that will help achieve results. You understand? Right now, as we are speaking, a lot of students are out there vulnerable. They don't have even money, so they go out there, one or two guys talk to them, they are willing to buy into their cheap talk, and by the time you realize they fall into so many unhealthy behaviors. And I think it is time we all, our imams, our especially the education sector, how best we can plan a well-tailored program for these young guys is very, very important. Other than that, we are never going to achieve results. If you want to talk about have safe sex in Islam, we are not going to promote safe sex, because Islam has a straitjacket rule on sex. Islam has a straightforward rule, and we can't bend that rule. It's non-negotiable. So instead of advocating for safe sex, Islam is rather going to advocate for safe sex. That is, instead of the F, we are going to make it V. That is, stay away from sex completely. But as to some of the things that we are going to put in place to ensure that the child really get absorbed or immune from some of these uncalled for activities, we have to put in place. For example, someone will tell you, a foot will be anywhere chance. What it means is that if you have a young pretty girl in the house and you say you are the uncle, every day, hey, meanwhile, this young girl, when she is in her menses, even sanitary pad is difficult for her to buy. So the economic aspect, all these things should be addressed. Now, last time, I think some few months back, I returned from Accra, I think late in the night. And when I arrived at KJTR, in fact, I was shocked to my bones to see how young girls, young guys sleep in open spaces under this harsh weather and all that. So you could see that these people, I asked myself, why have they put themselves in this vulnerable situation? Is it their making? No, it is not, because obviously we all know it is for economic reasons. Up there north, there are no economic ventures for them, so they have to seek for greener pastures. So they came down here, now no accommodation for them. They work all day, and sometimes when I see them with heavy loads, I cry for their spine, their backbone. In fact, no one should tell you that these people, when they go for x-ray of their backbone, there will be compression and depression and all that. But then, in addition to this, burden, they still don't have a place to sleep. So you could see that the Kayo lady, the next 3 months, she's pregnant. The next 12 months, you see her again, she has given birth and she's pregnant again. All these things, we ask ourselves, are they playing a safe game? Obviously not. So, and in Ghana, no government is ready to pump money into researching to find out how vulnerable these people are. And the situation keeps on going. And that's why it is predicted that in Africa, there's never going to be dropping of the figures. We are always going to see a rise. The global burden is going to be on us.
Okay. Yeah, it's just that the issues are a lot, and one thing moves to another. Like you're saying, due to a whole lot of conditions, they come down here. They are prone to a whole lot of issues. People sleeping with them, other health issues.
Yes.
No place of survival, no place for sleep, and all this. They are all health concerns. So the government is doing so. Which institutions are in charge are supposed to see to it that all these things, the government is doing the best. We've come out, we've seen Ghana Youth Commission as one of the agencies seeing to help in the decrease in such things. Is it the only agency that is working towards, or we have other agencies out there who are?
Yes, I'm happy to hear this question as to who is really helping the fight against AIDS. Ideally, individuals should take charge first. We are supposed to be the owners of our own health before someone else can come in. But the point is that sometimes people are born into societies that there's so much ignorance that they don't know even their left from their right. In Ghana, the Ministry of Health is supposed to be the superintendent of our health. That is ensuring adequate health for all its citizens, the Ministry of Health. But the big question is, how much is government pumping into it? Now, government has established this Ghana AIDS Commission. But the big question is, how much funding is going in there? How much funding? When you look at the treatment, even the programs to prevent HIV infection and all that, most of them are coming from international sources. But how can we sit down to allow international, agencies to be financing our health? how safe are we? The issue is there are so many things that government does that we think if they are committed to fighting for our health, they can equally do. However, they close their eyes to some of these things and allow international agencies to come just to donate to us. Now, I think recently in 2016, United Nations General Assembly, they declared about 26.9 billion for the fight against AIDS. Now, how much is Ghana's government pushing into it? Now, with the treatment to even control the condition among those infected, if there is a single month that we don't receive the donation from outside, you see the patients going on strike. Antiretroviral drugs have to come from they have to fly it into this country as donation before people can even survive. So, like you said, the government is supposed, through its various agencies, Ghana AIDS Commission, we also have the Ghana Health Service, the CHAG, and other teaching hospitals and all that. We have to empower these institutions. For example, the teaching hospital, for example, if government is to empower them through funding and all that, they can conduct so many researches. You see, when we say a teaching hospital, their sole responsibility is to conduct researches to promote health. But how much are we spending on some of these institutions? Now we have Legon Hospital, we have Kolebu, we have KNUST, we have Tamale and all that. But how much funding is going to some of these teaching hospitals? So it means that in effect there wouldn't be much research into HIV and all that. But we are supposed to, create the awareness and let government know that, look, it is your responsibility to wake up and be doing your work and not to be relying on international agencies. Currently, I must say that UNAIDS, they are the major funders or sponsors of our HIV programs. Even when it comes to prevention and treatment, both, they are taking a major part of it. And I think they have another agency that they call the PEPFAR, that is President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief by the US government. It is the single most biggest, commitment of any country in this world that any country is giving to support the fight against HIV. So US government is also doing so much well. So through this PEPFAR, we receive a lot of donations that helps in fighting HIV or funding HIV programs in the country.
Thank you very much. So currently we are in 2018. The statistics like we had over the week was for 2016, 2017. So for the year 2018, we plan that, or we hope that over the years we'll have a decline in the percentages. So what are we as a country supposed to do to see to it that there will be a decline in this percentage with the issue of HIV/AIDS prevalence in our country?
Well, once we know the various causes for HIV/AIDS, we know the obvious cause is the HIV, that is the human immunodeficiency virus. But for the various factors that cause the transmission or the spread of the infection, we know there are several dimensions to it, and we have talked about some of them. Once we know the cause, they say identification of the problem is half solution to the problem. So indeed, if we can tackle this problem of HIV pandemic head on, what we need to do is to tackle the causes. So right from the individual level, I think an educated mind can take healthy decisions. You see, there are several researches which have proven that if a person is highly educated, his level of getting prone to some of these infections reduces and all that. So we can promote education among our young girls and the guys, and even more specifically with HIV education. There's the need to talk about sex in the family. And it is time we have our imams, our churches, and our various NGOs in our communities. That is community mobilization. We have to walk the talk, not just I mean, we have to find meaningful economic ventures for our youth. An idle hand is usually mischievous. So if it is about making sure community mobilizing to make sure that no youth gets left behind, that is no youth that is either you are into school or you are into a trade. When some of these things happen, we can really fight the pandemic from the community level. At the government level too, looks like there's only one option: funding, funding, funding. If government can mobilize a lot of funding for several other programs, you can talk about GIDA, you can talk about a lot of programs that we spend millions, if not billions of dollars into some of these programs. Why not the fight against our own health? Because when you look at health, we should look at it from this dimension. When someone is ill, having ill health, it means that the government will be losing, in the sense that the government will be increasing his health budget to cure that person. HIV, we are talking about $300 and something a month in the treatment of HIV patient. Coupled with that, the person too is disabled. Frequent visitation to the hospital. Today I'm tired, I'm sick, fatigue, there's diarrhea and all that. The person doesn't go to work. So we lose productivity. That's what decreases. And quite apart from that, the person also has become a burden on family members. So if you have your wife, your brother, your sister who is supposed to work, so your meager earning, you have to be spending on that person. So it's a huge burden. So we think that the government should rather think about our health. And when you look at the motto for Ministry of Health, I think it's wealth creation, wealth creation through health. That is, we are trying to promote adequate health, and through that we can create a lot of wealth for the nation. However, government is not walking the talk. We say it on paper, but we don't put it into practice. So what we need to do as a government is to stay committed, not to be having lip service to some of these strategies. We know it is the obvious way or the straightforward way to go. Funding, funding, funding. Now you ask yourself, how much is government spending into research, into health-related conditions? Very little, if nothing. So you could see that we are not having the needed commitment from our governments. So what I would say is that if we really want to fight some of these things, then government should be the prime, source of funding, or should give the most commitment. Then away from government, we can think about NGOs like Mamphec is doing. In our little way, we are doing something to prevent the spread. So NGOs, the churches, the mosque and all that could also mobilize. If we think that not just about talking, please abstain from sex and all that, but we should find meaningful programs for these young guys. If it is economic venture. And I think now Muslim or Islamic NGOs are doing quite well in that area compared to the past. Now, instead of mobilizing people to go out there to do dawah, we are now mobilizing people to get them gainfully employed. When they are employed, they can really think about their Lord. And I think it's the first step. An empty stomach cannot think very well. So all these are strategies that as a community we can put together. And I think the Ghana Education Service should also make sure the curriculum is favorable to some of these health problems. If not completely fused into it, we should at least have well-tailored programs, for our students. Because in fact, our students are the most vulnerable. And the global statistics is showing that these young guys, SHS, JHS, they are the most affected. So we should do well across the length and breadth of our, community to make sure that we fight this pandemic head on.
So from all indications, it's not just the work of government. It's a whole humanity thing. We all come on board and see to it that this HIV issue is reduced to the barest minimum. We as, especially to our religious bodies, that they respect a lot, is because we realize that people really do respect these religious people. So as a means of getting to their people, we infuse some of these issues into some of our dawah and our preaching, so that when they hear from you as a religious person, they can also try to, though they are working on some of these things, sometimes the way they talk to them to easily puts them off. So in doing that, we should find ways that we can do the talk in a way that will not kind of
drive the
person away.
Yeah.
Like Islam said, Islam would not talk about having sex, but rather staying away from sex. But possibly you find yourself in a community where they are indulging themselves in sex. That doesn't mean you detach yourself from that person completely. It's a gradual process. You talk to the person on current basis to advise the person, and in due time, when the person is really sure of what he or she is doing, they just detach themselves from such issue. So it's been nice having you on.
Just to add to that, I think I agree with you to a very large extent, because with the HIV infection, we know the common cause is through sexual activities. And now this issue I think borders so much on our religious organizations, Islam, Christianity and all that. Because for Islam, as I've said, for us we have a straightforward solution. We can't compromise. However, we should put in place things that we can do so that these young guys do not go or approach the zina, as the Quran said. So society, the orientation, you could see that the orientation currently is all about promoting sex. In our social media, Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter and the rest, it's all about some of these things. But how best as a society can we change the orientation? Because if the social orientation is such that we allow free sex to be promoted, then how safe are we? And how do we come back to complain if we are receiving some of these high prevalence? So the society should, redirect the orientation. And this can be done, government taking policies. Now we don't have government policies on some of these things. We are just cutting and pasting what is in the Western world. And I think it is highly wrong. For us, our cultural background should inform us what policies we should take. And some of these things, government should be straightforward on them. A government who will tell you, look, like I remember Kenyan president told Obama when he visited Kenya, when Obama was trying to convince them that, look, these homosexuals do have a right and all that. Kenyan president was straightforward and told them, look, in Kenya, he told Obama that homosexuality may be an issue in the US, but to be honest with you, it is not an issue in Kenya. So if we can be straightforward as a society, so that we let our youth know that there are certain websites that we can even block. Yes. And that's the essence of government controlling some of these things. Even we know Vodafone, blah, blah, they are controlling our networks. But government has a power in controlling some of these things. So that's the essence of the communication ministry. We can block certain websites. And we can also come out with websites which will rather promote the right orientation in the society. And we can keep on promoting or advocating for NGOs or community-based support groups that will help in proper orientation of our youth. Now, I look at it this way: our youth are not being coached. They are left to their own, destiny, and they are fighting. It's like they have been drowned and they are throwing their hands everywhere, looking for opportunity to be saved. Now they don't know which orientation to take, whether Western or Ghanaian. Now they are just at a crossroad. They don't know what to do. So I think our leaders, right from government, starting with policies to the community level, our community leaders, our chiefs, we should all help so that we can orientate our young guys. Because once we know 80% of the infection is coming from sexual misbehavior, then we have to, tackle it head on from there.
More attention
should be given over there. Right now, when you look at even those of us who have gotten into marriage, sometimes there are some religious, dogmas that they think it is even haram to go for testing before, getting into marriage. But I think it is hard time our imams will force some of these things on its members. As a community, if I'm imam and if you don't bring those tests, if you don't bring certificate to show that you have undergone marriage, pre-marriage counseling and all that, I don't come to sit and bless your marriage. So until we take some of these practical steps, it will be talk, and we never walk the talk.
That will even bring an increase among them.
It is going to increase.
Because we don't really look at those things.
Yes. Previously, we were thinking that the infection was just among non-Muslims and all that. But now, when you look at the prevalence rate, Middle East and North Africa is now chasing the Western world. They are now chasing in terms of figures. Not to talk about Ghana, because for Ghana, our Muslim communities are not far different from the non-Muslim communities. Because what they do, we do. Haram is now halal. Halal is now haram. So we don't see the difference. So it is hard time we take, straightforward, measures to address this issue. Other than that, we cannot make any headway.
Okay. It's still Mamphec, and we have with us in our studio Mr. Amin, a teacher from Kokofu, and we've been discussing HIV/AIDS prevalence. So far, we've been talking about some few statistics with regards to the prevalence, and we've also talked about how government can see to or can help to reduce such increase over time. We are in 2018. Those figures were recorded. That was between 2016 2017. Now we are in 2018. So we're talking about some few things we can do to reduce or help to decline the percentage of HIV/AIDS in our country. We had Mr. Amin in our studios, and it's been nice talking to him. And we pray that with the coming weeks, in some of our few topics, he can still come around to help us discuss them. So before we close, or we draw the curtains, we would like Mr. Amin to say hi to anyone who wants to greet on our program here.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to send a warm message to my loved ones. I think first and foremost, I'll just want to thank all my listeners and say hi to you all. We are happy you are listening to MAM Radio and TV. It's very important we support this very group, MAM Muslim Access Movement, coming out with an opportunity for Muslims out there to be in the social media. And I think it is helping us so much, reaching us on Facebook, reaching us on YouTube and all that. It is going to help, so we encourage you to keep on listening, and most importantly to support the programs. Donation coming in will be welcome and all that. So I also thank the organizers of this program and the chairman of the Mamphec for inviting me to be part of this program. I think it's been a joy being with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was nice meeting you too and having you on our program. It's been Mamphec. Just a few minutes for us to draw down the curtains. We'd like to thank our panelist, Mr. Amin, for coming into the studio to help us discuss today's topic. I'm once again Husseina Ibrahim, your host for Mamphec. So till we meet, inshallah, next week, we'll come around with us another topic for discussion. So till we meet, we say salam alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Adofonom ni nyanom krimusum hyehyeye ahodo egu akwan mo de brew mamre do na moti live mo mayintie en na kwaje wom wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Mam online radio and TV say ya brania desre debiada mumwaye debida akwasibu ni putoka ne say don't fish for the man, teach the man how to fish so that he can feed himself. In penyinfo a ewo koimu atu agina fa adwen say tua na mon bi dwumadie bia edemfa so bebre jihad kuyi na boya kohoma bokoyi hu bra say ye pe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala srafo mujahideen, the soldiers of Allah. No ma beautiful to de bia dwuma bokoyi hu bra na ma ye jaya desre e ye radio ni and TV yiso se wo pese wo contribute e boa dwumadie ya. Mobile money contact a wo be send wo photo afa so 0246751175. Se wo send bibia fa number yiso a hwese dina ba mam online ansa na wa send insha Allah 0246751175. But Allah besia na wo bra nya kwada mam online radio and TV.